What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Slice of TV, where we are going through HBO's The Last of Us. Today, we are talking about episode 2, Infected. I am your host, Brett Parker, and joining me is a special guest from the Quad Pro Quo Podcast, Alli.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I should say welcome back. You've been here before.
That's true. We talked
And
about
for
ready or not.
everyone who's like, why is she green? I don't know. Okay. I'm just gonna point it out now because I know somebody might say something. I don't know what's happening. We just said screw it. We're gonna be to it. You're just gonna want to hear our voices. It's okay.
Exactly.
So, Alli,
Yes.
I am excited to talk to you about this because you are someone who has never played the game.
Never.
Which is great. I mean, it's not great. I definitely recommend you play it at some point if you get a chance because it is a great game. But it's awesome to be, somebody like me I've played both the games. I know the games forward and back, and to be able to experience it with a bunch of people who haven't experienced the game. It's really interesting because you kind of get different points of view. So you're going into this fresh. I want to know your opinion on the show so far. Like, what do you think of it?
Okay. So I was really excited to watch it. Because I really loved Chernobyl, and I know the guys who did Chernobyl. I thought Chernobyl was so good, and I love Pedro Pascal. And I just thought it looked really good from the when they released the trailer. So I knew it was a video game, but I didn't really know anything else. So so far I find it terrifying. Like, I was really scared watching the first episode. So I'm really enjoying it.
Okay. What about episode 2? Since we're talking specifically about episode 2 today, what were your thoughts on it?
Again, terrifying. The clickers. I feel like, have you ever heard of the phobia, trypophobia? People who have like a fear of like really tiny holes and they can't look at like spore seeds and stuff like that. Yep. I feel like they would have a problem with this show because the clickers and all the fungi is really triggering for people like that, and it just makes me really uneasy to look at them for some reason. It makes my skin crawl. But I like how they start, and I hope this kind of continues through the series. I like how they start each episode with almost like a glimpse into the past. So we get like a little glimpse of how the infection or whatever it is started, but we're not getting full pictures of it yet. And so I kind of hope that they continue with that because I really like the way that they do that. And then we kind of come back into present day with Pedro Pascal and his journey with, what's her name? Well, I know her at Ellie. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, it was really good. And I was sad about what happened. I mean, I guess we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Very traumatic scene when we get into more spoilers. So yeah, we'll do a little bit. I mean, you did very well in not spoiling anything. So yeah, being somebody who has played the game and seeing this episode, going through this episode twice, it really, and I said it in my episode last week where it was like, this is what people need to do if they want to make an adaptation of a video game. Stop trying to create something brand new just because not everyone has experienced it. They're like, well, if you played the game, why would you want to rewatch that? Because that's exactly what The Last of Us is doing. But they're also sprinkling in new things. And that's what I love. Like these beginning, like the openings of these episodes where it shows you before everything goes down. That wasn't in the game. I mean, in episode 1, the whole, seeing Joel and his daughter going through all that was in the game. But that's all you see of before. And then the rest of the game is just you going on your journey as Joel with Ellie through, the infected land to get her to where she needs to go.
Okay.
But I appreciate that they're changing certain things up with other situations, like the way that the infection is spread in the game. In the game, they talk about you can actually get it by spores, like like
breathing it in. Yeah.
Which they took that out for the show because it just made it felt like it made it too easy for the infection to spread. So they changed it up to the whole having it be like it spreads everywhere and they can kind of feel it like anything that's infected. Right.
Yeah. Like it's like a symbiotic organism almost.
Yeah. So I I like that they kind of tweak things. They tweak the end of the episode, the way that the whole situation ends.
Okay.
If you hear banging, it's just a 1-year-old. It's okay.
Oh, okay. Well, if you hear barking, it's one of 3 pugs. So.
But yeah, I do like the fact that they're not like giving us shot for shot of everything that goes on in the game. They are giving us mostly things that we've seen already for people who have played the game, but they're giving us also brand new, fresh takes and looks at the world that we're experiencing. This episode was a little slow in the beginning, but it really builds up really fast. And then once you get to where you experience the clickers, it's as tense as playing the game for the first time and getting to that exact moment.
Yeah, I knew they were coming because you see them very briefly in the trailer of like before the show even started. You saw that trailer, and we watched the episode, and then we watched like the little 5-minute kind of thing at the end of the episode where they talk about getting the clickers like right and the design of it and how it was done by the same guy who did the effects for Chernobyl.
Yep.
So I guess people who have been exposed to radiation look like clickers too. So they said that we wanted the people who played the game to go, oh, that's exactly what it should look like. And the people who had never played the game to go, that's like effing terrifying. And I looked over at Matt and he was like, yep, that's exactly what it is. Because he had played the game. So he was like, that's exactly what they should look like. And I was absolutely terrified by them. They were just, ugh, so gross.
Yeah. And what makes it even better is it's practical. It's all practical work. There's no CG work. So, you know, I've seen interviews with Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey, I think is who plays Ellie, and they talk about like how terrifying it was because of seeing them face to face instead of, you know, having to act against nothing if they were to use special effects.
Right.
Oh man, I could only imagine.
Just the amount of work too to put that on every day or apply it is just, oh gosh. Yeah, it's really amazing what they're doing.
So this episode was actually directed by Neil Druckmann, who was the director. He's the creator of The Last of Us. He was the game director for both 1 and 2. And so this was, I guess, his directorial debut, though, in live action. And I feel, I mean, I'm not going to say it's easy. I don't know how it is, but being that he created this world and he created a lot of the things that go on in this episode, there was probably an easier task for him. And having actors like Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey and who's the actress who plays
Anna
Torv? She's great. I saw her in Mindhunter.
That's where
Netflix.
I know her from, but she was also on Fringe, which I never watched, but a lot of people love Fringe. But I know her from Mindhunter.
I didn't recognize her when I first saw her in the first episode, and then I had to look her up, and I was like, oh man, of course.
I did too. I was like, she looks so familiar, and she weirdly kind of looks like Cate Blanchett too. So, and then I looked her up, I was like, oh, I think they're both Australian. But I was like, when I looked her up, I was like, oh, she's from Mindhunter. Okay, so she's great.
R.I.P. to that great show.
Yes, I know.
Let's get into some spoilers. So if you haven't watched the episode, go watch the episode. I mean, to be honest, if you're listening to this, you should have already watched the show. Don't come into this not watching the show.
Yeah.
So the episode opens with so technically I think it's 2 days before the events that happen in Austin. And we meet a scientist from Indonesia who specializes in cordyceps. She's a mycologist. Never heard of that. But she gets brought in to look at a cordyceps strain that they took out of a human. And it's one of those things where they're like, that's impossible. It doesn't survive in humans, which as of right now in reality, it doesn't. So let's hope it stays that way. But
so I'm going to ask, I'm sure it's a stupid question. So cordyceps are a real thing.
They are real things. So, so in reality, they only affect mostly ants and some other insects. You can actually look it up on YouTube.
Okay.
It's very weird. It's literally exactly like it works in this with the humans, where it literally is just a fungus that grows from the inside and then kind of spreads
Okay.
out. Yeah.
Okay.
And it like pretty much makes you into a zombie. It takes control of your brain and does exactly what
Wow.
we see in this.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't, in reality, it doesn't affect humans. I don't even think at all. But
Okay.
in this, we see, so she gets told that then she has to study a body that
Mm-hmm.
was infected. Now if you I don't know if Matt told you, but the way that those little cordyceps strands that come out of their mouths, that wasn't in the
Mm-hmm.
game. It,
Okay.
because of the way that it spreads in the show compared to the game. That
Okay.
is kind of how it's spread. It's kind of like I don't know if you've seen the show The Strain or if you've seen Blade 2. You know how
I've seen Blade too.
the vampires that kind of have the tongue,
Right.
and that's how it infects. And I think that's how the cordyceps actually get into your body is
Okay.
by those strands at least in the show. As I said, in the game, it's a little bit different. You do get it by getting bit, but you also can get them by spores and stuff. Like there's actually levels where you have to put on like a gas mask so you don't breathe it in. But yeah, so she goes in there and you know, she's studying it and she's very confused because she's like, how does this happen from
Right.
a human? Like she's just studying the bite, and then she pulls out the cordyceps out of the mouth, and she's like, "I'm out." What?
Right.
And
Well,
then
it's an incredibly startling scene even from the get because it almost I mean, it looks almost like a police state already. Like the police are coming in and they're taking her from her lunch and everyone's kind of staring at her like, "Oh my god." I wasn't sure where it was at first. At first I thought it was like North Korea or something because everyone was so freaked out by
right,
like just these police officers coming in, and I think it's Kuala Lumpur. Um, but it's just such a jarring scene even before you get to the autopsy and her pulling that stuff out of the mouth because it's just like she looks terrified,
oh
like she's
yeah,
gonna be thrown into jail immediately or something like
yeah.
that.
I love the car
Yeah,
ride where she's like, "Am I in trouble?"
I know.
Like, no. It was like, "Do you have the right person?"
I know. It was so crazy. Yeah.
It's terrifying. But as soon as she figures it out, she pretty much tells him how screwed they are because he's just
Mhm.
like, "We brought you in. We want you to help stop this." She's asking him about like how many have, because I guess like people are just missing. There's like
Right.
14 workers at this mill or factory that were missing, and she's like, "Well, we're screwed."
Yeah, she
Because
said bomb the cities
yeah,
basically.
because he's like, "Well, just make a vaccine or make a medicine." She's like, "I can't do either of those things because we didn't even know this could happen."
Right.
And yeah, that was terrifying when he goes, "Well, what do we do?" And she said, bomb the city." I was like, "Oh my god."
Okay.
Which
Yeah.
actually connects to something that we see later on in the episode when
Mhm.
they're walking through downtown Boston, which is actually
Right.
Edmonton, which is hilarious because there's so many people on Twitter that are like, "I know all these buildings. They didn't even make it look like Boston."
Except for the gold for like
Yeah,
the town hall in Boston.
which
That's pretty
that
much the
thing
only
is
thing.
still in Edmonton too. They're just like, well, just paint it gold so it looks like
Oh,
that
okay.
building in Boston. It's hilarious. But yeah, they noticed the where they dropped the bombs in the city. And so that's
Yes.
pretty
Yeah.
much that's what they tried to do. They tried to
Mhm.
bomb, bomb. And the creepier thing was that she said bomb the city with everyone in it.
Yeah.
Oh boy. I mean, I knew this show was
What
going
do
to be
we do?
dark, but damn.
So dark.
So yeah, so after all this happens, we fast forward to Joel, Tess, and Ellie.
Mhm.
And this is early in Joel and Ellie's relationship. So, they don't like each other. Joel definitely is very skeptical because of course she's immune to the infection, but he's still very
Right.
skeptical about it. But Tess is very much like, I feel like we should help her. We need to move on and get her to wherever she needs to go. Because I feel like they kind of just like forget about the battery at a point because they had to
Right.
go get that battery in exchange for her.
Well, it also I feel like is going to get to a point. I mean, and I feel like Tess kind of obviously gets to that point where she's just like, what are we gonna do? Go back to the what are they called? The
the
NV or the
QZ.
QZ, the quarantine zone. And I mean, it's not like they have a great life in the quarantine
No.
zone. And it's like, I mean, what are they going to do? Might as well just keep going. I think Pedro Pascal's character is just so used to like the routine now that he doesn't want to chance it. But it's like, you're either going to die out there or you're going to die in the QZ. So it's like, you might as well just try to do something with this girl. I love that shot of her waking up and that like, I love the set design on the show. It looks like she's in a meadow, but she's in like an abandoned building that's just overgrown. It's such a pretty shot of like the sun on her and everything. It's really a really cool shot.
Yeah, to say it pretty much is just beaming down on her and everybody else is kind of in the darkness.
Yes. They're staring at her.
Ellie is so funny. Just how she's always got these quick comebacks anytime they say anything. I love when they're about to leave and, they're both getting their guns out. She's like, can I have a gun? And they're like, no, absolutely not. And she's like, well, fuck it then. I'll just throw a sandwich at them.
Just throw a sandwich at them. Yeah, she's really quippy. I like her.
It's great. They have to go. I think they have to go to the state building. So but they have to stop at like a motel and it's flooded. This is taken from the game. This entire scene, I said, most of the show is going to be taken from the game, and even exact lines are said. Like when she goes up to the desk and is pretending to ask for service to get a room and stuff. It's word for word, like the whole thing where she's doing things and Joel's like, "You're a weird girl," and he's like, well, "No, you're a weird kid," and she's like, "You're a weird kid." It's great.
It's cute. I like their little relationship. Yeah, they have to get to the state building to meet they're called the Fireflies. Is that what they're called?
So yeah, they have to meet the Fireflies because that's Marlene is the kind of like a head of the Fireflies. So yeah, she needs to give it to them so that they can transport her west. You don't know exactly where west, but that's where she's being sent. And and then again, they're going into the water and she's like, "You gotta go in there." And like, "Yep, we gotta get to the other side." She's like, "I can't swim." And it's like, seriously? It's like, "Well, do you think we have pools at school?" And he's like, "No." And you notice it's only like a foot deep. Oh, it's great. Because in the game, she can't swim either. And so in those missions where she can't swim, she has to like jump on a makeshift raft and you'd have to be in the water, like dragging it around to get her to another location.
Right.
Because she can't. And I just thought that was a nice touch. But yeah, it's very game like though, because there's various motions where it's like before they leave the building that you first see him in, Joel has to move an obstacle out of the way in order for to get out the door. After they go through the hotel, they go upstairs and like, it's like, oh, well, we need to get to the other side of this door. Send Ellie volunteers to go because she's small, but Tess ends up going. It's like it's hilarious how like close to the game they're going. They're like, we're even going to do these sort of like missions because there's times where like Joel can't fit in a certain area, so you just send Ellie to go do it, and then she comes back. And I thought that was great. The whole interaction between them in the hallway. You can see that like they're trying to coexist with each other, but it's just it's like a parent dealing with just a pain in the ass teenage kid.
Yeah.
It's like everything you say, they just have some sarcastic remark, and Ellie's full of them.
I think one of the first things I said when I watched the first episode, because we all four of us were watching it together, and I was like, "Oh, people are still having children in this post-apocalyptic." Because like it's the first thing I think of in these post-apocalyptic movies or shows, like in The Quiet Place, when they choose to have another baby. I'm like, why are you doing that? God. Why are we having children into this horrible future where mushroom heads are coming after us?
Yeah, like, right.
I don't. Why are we continuing to procreate? It doesn't make any sense.
When it came to A Quiet Place, spoiler alert if you haven't seen A Quiet Place, I always found that they did that because of the fact that they lost the one kid in the beginning and was kind of like trying to bring that back. I don't know.
But they got two other ones.
I completely understand. You literally need to live and not make any noise. And you're going to bring children, especially a baby? You think the baby, you can't, you don't cry. And it's like,
Yes.
The baby's gonna be,
No.
all right, mom. Like,
Yes.
what?
And I mean, it's kind of the same in this scenario.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't really make noise
No.
when you're around them because they'll hear you, especially the clickers. And
Yeah.
like, it's like, yes, let's add more people to this scenario. That's how diseases spread.
Yes.
We have to stop it.
And to be honest, I think the way that the cordyceps communicate with each other is a lot more terrifying in this show than it was in the game, because of the fact of, like, if you step on a cordyceps on the ground here, they could feel it a mile and a half away. I mean, and we see it towards the end of the episode,
really cool.
how that all went down. And that's just terrifying, because it's like sometimes you might just step in the wrong spot one time, and then you got a swarm of infected coming at you.
It was really scary. I thought that was so neat. And the way they showed it in the end of the episode, I was like, oh, it was great. I really liked it.
So they get to the top of the hotel, and they see, and this is when Tess explains to Ellie the whole, process with the infected, and like we were just talking about, and how they are able to feel, vibrations, or the like the cordyceps are able to communicate with each other. And so you have to pretty much watch your step. But also, to backtrack, when they're walking down the highway, Ellie asks about a large spore throwing infected, and they're like, no, that doesn't exist. I won't spoil it, but it does.
Oh, God, it doesn't exist. Oh no.
I won't tell you what it is, but it's probably it's gonna be terrifying nonetheless. And but I love when she is like, oh, isn't there one with a split face that's kind of like a bat, and they're just like, they don't say no, they just look at each other,
and they look at each other like
terrifying.
Yeah,
because what it is.
Is that the clicker? Or
that's the clicker. That's the clicker. Okay. I mean, I was terrified before I even saw it. Like, my wife didn't understand until she saw them. But yeah, that's when we get to the state, and then fast forward, we get to the state house, and this is exactly how the game plays out. You go to this building, you have to get to the top in order to get to another building, and this is when you run into the clickers for the very first time. And I knew what they were walking into, and I was still like on the edge of my seat, like tense, because they did such a great job with the clickers and the effects, how they sounded. The sounds they make are just
it was a mix between like the girl from The Grudge and those creatures in The Descent. I kept thinking like it just sounds because they can't see or they can't see, so it's like echolocation basically. But when they were in that room, I kept thinking like someone's gonna back into one of those stupid presidential busts. How those are still on the things, I don't know. But like someone would have run into them at some point. But I was like, one of them's gonna back in, and Benjamin Franklin's head's gonna go falling down, and that clicker is gonna. Oh gosh, it was so tense. It was so scary.
So. Yeah, they encounter the clicker. They encounter a dead body first that's all torn up, and Ellie's very confused because she's like, I've been attacked by infected, and it wasn't anything like that. Yeah. So you're like, oh, and that's when, and Anna Torv, her performance is so good. The way she reacts to things. I mean, Pedro Pascal is doing a great job himself, but I gotta praise Anna Torv, because she just, every time, like when they find that body, and Ellie pretty much is stating how like this isn't normal, and Tess is just like, oh shit, and she's telling Joel like, oh, maybe he got attacked outside and he came crawling in, or she's trying to come up with scenarios that but she knows exactly what's in this building.
She looks genuinely terrified.
Oh yeah,
in every scenario. And it's just very subtle on her face. And Pedro Pascal just kind of looks the same, we'll say. He never really looks scared, probably just because he's trying to be strong and whatever. But she just always, like, you're right. She just does such a great job. Her reactions are amazing.
Yeah, she's fantastic. So they get upstairs, and that's when they run into the clickers. There's two of them. Yeah. And I love it when Ellie is very scared, and he pretty much tells her like they can't see, but they can hear.
Right.
And I don't remember. Does she do that? How does the one get alerted? That first one, like to start the whole thing.
He just breathes a little too loudly because like the clicker walks like right by them,
Yeah.
and she sees the clicker's face for the first time and just goes like like that, very low, and it hears her and just turns. And then once it turns and screams, it's hard not to scream and freak out. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. So it's just like the tiniest little like exhale of breath, basically, it heard.
So so it's just chaos for this entire. It feels like forever. It feels like this scene goes on a long time, and I'm okay with it because it's just so terrifying. Joel is fighting one, and then Tess kind of disappears. She's like off fighting the other one, and you don't see her for a while. And it's
Never
just Joel
good.
kind of trying to make sure Ellie's around, trying to make sure she's okay. And you notice that these things are very, very, very hard to kill because they get shot a lot and they just keep getting back up.
I asked about that. I was like, wait, so how do you kill them? Because this one's getting shot quite a bit. I feel like they were even kind of shooting it sort of like in the head or in the neck, and it was still coming at them. And I was like, do you have to set them on fire? You have to cut their heads off? Like, is that what you have to do? Are they vampires? Like, I don't understand. But then he was just like, you just have to keep shooting them. You just have to reload. In the game, you just have to keep reloading. Basically.
Yeah, the easiest way to kill a clicker in the game is to sneak up behind one, like to be very quiet, and you sneak up and you stab it in the neck.
Oh yeah, that's what he said. He used a term, and I can't remember the name of it.
You can shiv them right in the neck.
Yeah.
And or you can Molotov cocktail them. They die pretty quick when you set them on fire. But yeah, there's no point in shooting them. Literally, what you do is just run around until they kind of lose your. They can't hear you anymore. Like you kind of hide,
right?
Because they'll find you. They're just terrifying. They are the worst things to run into in that damn game. And they did so good in this with how they looked, how they sounded, how they moved. Like the fact that like they're on the side of the bookcase, or not the bookcase, it was like a display case. And then he stepped on the piece of glass and the thing just hops over the display case to get him.
So fast.
It was crazy. And Ellie's there too, and she ends up getting bit. And I don't think that happens in the game, that she gets bit a second time, but I do like the fact that she gets bit. She's like, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah.
Well, I guess if anyone were to get bit, it should be me.
It should happen to me.
Now, did you see kind of the reaction though when she says that, like Tessa's reaction to her saying that? Like, did you figure that she got bit?
I kind of figured it when they didn't show her. Yeah, it's never good when they go off screen. I'm like, no, and I just also putting her as a guest star is also never a good. See,
like I hate when shows do that. Stop it.
I know the credits kind of kill it for you when they say guest starring Anna Torv. I'm like, okay, so we're not gonna last very long.
Yeah.
So when she kind of went off, I was like, that's not good. Something's gonna. I knew they wouldn't like kill her off screen because I mean it's just such an emotional scene. But I knew something was gonna happen to her. Like I knew it wasn't good. Yeah.
When Joel's like, "Are you okay?" She's like, "Yeah, just twisting my ankle. I'm good."
No.
Because you start reading her body language for the rest of the episode because it changes so drastically. Like they go up onto the roof because they got to cross over to the next building, and Joel's kind of fixing her up, and he's kind of checked out. He kind of just wants to quit this and go back.
Yeah, he wants to go back.
And she's like, "No, if we can help, if we can change this, we're going to do this." And he's like, "All right." And she kind of like treats him. She like bosses him around. It's like, "Why don't you go over there and watch her?" And he's just, you could see the look on his face like, "Why you got to yell at me?" Just like,
yeah. I think she says something like, "Can't you just for once like think of something other than everything's going to be shit," basically. Yeah. He just always, I mean, honestly, yes, it's started really crappy for him. His daughter gets shot and killed, and he's been living for 20 years in this infected world, and everything's been crap, so it's going to continue to be. So why even hope? And I think she said something like that. Can't you just hope that something's better? She's infected. She's been infected for 2 weeks, and she's not. What do they call them? Like not the clickers, but just like the regular ones. I
so
guess.
there's different stages. There's like
Oh,
runners,
okay.
and they're like when they're first infected, they still look very human. They just kind of
Right.
have the veins and stuff, and
The veins.
they're
Yeah.
very fast. I think they're called runners. I'm not sure. I don't remember the exact order of things, but the clicker
Okay.
is like advanced. That's why it's
Okay.
got the thing, and then it progresses into. I don't want to talk about the next stage because you're gonna see it in the show
Ew.
how
Okay.
the whole thing progresses, and it's all
Does it
terrifying.
make them faster? Like, does it alter their like?
No, because the
physicality or
clickers
something
really
like
aren't
that?
fast. They're just very persistent. Like they don't
Oh, okay.
they don't sprint as fast as like the runners do, but they're just they will not lose you. Like
Okay.
you could literally run for a mile, they'll follow you. But they stay in the dark. Like Ellie was
Okay.
stating, they're kind of like bats because they're blind. So
Yeah.
usually in the game you only encountered clickers in dark tunnels or in abandoned buildings. You never saw them like on the outside unless you pissed one off and it just followed you outside.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, there's you can look it up. There's a bunch of different stages of when it starts to the end. And I like that you kind of get like a breakdown where Ellie's like, how long do the infected, live for? And he's like,
I
well,
appreciated that.
it could be a couple weeks. And there are some that have been walking around for 20 years. And I'm like, that's terrifying. I don't want to see those. And I feel like we're going to. We're going to see those old ones.
I feel like it's gonna. I don't know. I just remember seeing in the trailer when they first showed the trailer some gigantic looking non-human rock looking creature.
Is that the one
crawling
at the end of the trailer where it looks like he's coming over the ledge?
Yes,
Oh yeah.
That thing.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, I don't know what that thing is.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't look human,
that's
or
not
it looks
fun.
really old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Anna or Tess, her demeanor is different. She, the Joel and Ellie get to see the skyline of Boston. I say it in quotations to all the audio listeners. But yeah, it's this is directly pulled from the game as well. This exact scene, and then Tess, of course, is like, "We gotta go," type deal. We gotta go meet them, and everything's a rush. You could see as she's like walking down the street, she's
Real
like fast walking, and you could see Joel's kind of confused, like what's going on here? Why is she? What's up with this?
Yeah. And then they get to the. Is it the State House? Is that what it is? The State House?
Yeah.
Okay, City Hall, whatever. And the Fireflies aren't there.
Nope.
And the armored truck is there, but no one else is. And I was just like, oh no. Because I, again, haven't played the game. So I thought that when they first made that deal with, what was her name?
Marlene.
The head. Okay. When they made it with her, I thought they made the deal that they were going to take her all the way to Colorado or wherever they were. And I was like, oh, they just had to take her to the state. Okay.
Yeah.
That's not as bad.
So I don't know if you knew.
Now they will have to.
Yeah. That's pretty much what Joel's being tasked. Pretty much what Tess pretty much makes Joel do in her final moment. But I don't know if you knew this, but the actress who plays Marlene she also played Marlene in the game. She was the voice of Marlene in the game. So
that's so
pretty cool.
That is cool.
So yeah, they know that all the Fireflies are dead, and they're trying to figure out why. And they figure out that one of them got infected, attacked all the rest of them, and that's And so Tess is freaking out, and Joel's kind of just like, okay, well, it's over. We can go back. Let's go back home. She's like, this isn't my home. And that's when Ellie's like, oh, she's infected. And Joel's like, what? All right, show me. And she shows him, and she's like, whoops.
Yeah. And it spread so fast. I was like, she literally got bit like, what, an hour ago maybe?
Technically, she said an hour because they compare the bites, because they compare Ellie's newest bite to her bite.
Which is already starting to like dry up, basically.
Yeah, it just looks like a cut.
Yeah.
And so this Tess's death scene in the show is so much, in my opinion, is so much better than her death scene in the game. So in the game,
they said they elaborated on it.
Yeah. It's just more dramatic. And I think it makes you like it was an emotional part of the game, but you didn't really have the connection to Tess in the game as you do in the show. Like I feel like you spent way more time with her in the show. So when her time is fine, I mean, as someone who's played it, I knew she wasn't going to make it very far, even without seeing the credit, but like just knowing that Tess is going to die. But the way that they did it was amazing. So in the game, she gets bit, she's infected, and she kind of needs to sacrifice herself. But instead of it being infected that come, it's Fedra, which is the like government officials that patrol, which is just, this makes it more dramatic. So one of the infected on the ground comes alive and Joel shoots it, and that sends a signal to the infected that were all laying out in front, which I didn't talk about it though, was when they first see them on the ground, you see the sun hit them and you see they're reacting to the sunlight as it's moving.
Yeah, it was weird. They were all like barrel rolling. It was so, I'm like, what are they doing? I thought they were all swarming to eat something. And because it's so far away, you can only kind of see the movement very like from a distance. And I was like, what are they doing? It just looked like they were rolling downhill almost.
It's like they were recharging or something. It was like they were getting energy. It was weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, it sends a signal to that entire swarm and it comes after them. And that's when, Tess is like, you gotta bring her, you gotta end this. Like if she can change the world, then you need to do this. And he at first is very hesitant, and then he knows what he's got to do, and he takes her. In the game, Ellie doesn't fight Joel. Like she kind of accepts it too. She knows that she's like Tess is gonna die, so she kind of just is like, okay, I gotta go with Joel. Where this is very dramatic, where like Ellie doesn't want to accept the fact that Tess is gonna die, and she just feels that Joel is abandoning her. And so that's why you get that final scene where Ellie is just kind of contemplating what to do. She's just standing there. But man, this scene where she, Tess dumps all the gas and the infected break into the state house, and it's all, you get the fog effect where you just see Tess, and then you see kind of just the outlines of the infected. They're all running because they're going after Joel. But then you have the one that sees her.
Stops.
Yeah. And it doesn't come straight at her because it senses that she's infected.
Okay.
So it's kind of like that kiss of death. It's that final end for Tess, where it's not it coming after and just eating her. It comes up and literally just puts the cordyceps in her mouth. And there's actually a companion podcast to the show that's actually hosted by Troy Baker, who is the voice of Joel in the video game.
Okay.
And I think it's also with the creator, with Neil Druckmann, and is it Craig Mazin, who is the showrunner? And they talk about each episode and different things. And they were talking about the fact of like, as that is happening, and she's trying to she's trying to flick the lighter, but it won't work.
The light,
And you could tell that like her flicks are starting to get slower and slower, and it's kind of like her body she's trying to fight the infection. She's trying to fight it taking over until that final moment where it finally lights and she drops in. It's so good. This is in my opinion, is 1,000 times better than her death in the game. I love how it just makes it more emotional, just the way it ends.
It definitely does, especially the stuff she says to Joel before they run. Like I think she says, like, I forgive you for not being able to be what I want you to be, because I guess they kind of make it seem like they're in a romantic relationship, or at least a relationship of convenience, we'll say. And maybe she wanted more, and he's never, I don't think ever going to be like that for anyone. I think he died once his daughter died. So, but just when that runner or whatever he is, and the things just started to come out of his mouth, I was just like, oh my God. It felt weirdly romantic and terrifying at the same time, because he slowly comes at her and he's gonna kiss her, and then these like tendril spores come out of his mouth, and it was like vile.
It just sits on it it feels like it sits on it for so long,
forever,
just because she's still trying to light the lighter, and it's just slower as she's like, her body is just giving up. It's trying to fight it until that final moment where I'm just like, oh man, they couldn't have wrote it any better than this.
It was really
It was
good.
so
It was
good.
really well done. Yeah,
And
definitely.
Joel and Ellie, they escape. Well, they escape. It blows up, and then
Hmm.
that's the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Oh, she also Tess does talk about bringing Ellie to Frank, and oh man, I feel terrible because he's a pretty integral part of the game. Is it Bill? Is it Billy? No, what the hell's his name?
I don't know.
I don't remember.
Couldn't
Bill
look
and
that
Frank.
up.
Bill and Frank.
Bill and Frank.
Yep.
Okay.
They got to bring. She wants her to take, or she wants him to take Ellie to see them. Pretty much give
Right.
her to them. And I feel, and that's probably where this the episode 3 is going to be, is focusing on Bill and Frank and that whole relationship. I do hope that they continue these like before the virus, or those kind of things. I really think that's really cool. On it does. I mean, it could even be like early during the infection, like during the whole pandemic, like what were people doing on the early stages of it, where this is 20 years later. People are more comfortable. I don't want to I say that with quotes, because I don't think anyone's comfortable in this situation.
No.
But yeah,
No.
that's
it looks like that's what it's going to be, because it shows. I mean, at least shows. I'm assuming it's going to open with how Joel and why am I forgetting her name? Anna, not
Ellie.
Anna. Ellie. No, the Anna Torv. I'm sorry.
Oh, Tess.
Tess. I'm sorry. Maybe how they knew Bill and Frank before they went to Boston, potentially, because
That could be it too.
I feel like they sort of show a little bit of what looks like sort of a callback, and then maybe how Bill and Frank meet, because it's Nick Offerman and
yes,
it's Murray Bartlett from The White Lotus.
Oh, I haven't seen that, so I wasn't sure who that was.
Yeah, he plays the hotel manager in the first season of The White Lotus. So
cool.
I'm sure it'll be great.
I mean, two episodes in, I am hooked. I am very happy with how this is going. I hope it stays the course. I know Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin have stated that it is going to be very faithful to the game. They're not going to deviate too much unless they're just kind of creating new elements, but that are cohesive to the story that has already been told in the games, which is great. That's how it should be. Resident Evil, I'm looking at you. But yeah, that's it for episode 2. Alli, what do you got going on over at the Quad Pro Quo Podcast?
Oh, well, we just started season 2, so we felt the need to pay homage or tribute to Nicolas Cage in the month of January. So we had what we're calling a cage match.
It's great. So creative. I love it.
I know. So the first episode came out on the 19th, and it was my pick of Con Air versus Matt's pick of The Rock.
Okay.
And then episode 2 comes out this Thursday, the 26th, and it has The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent going up against Raising Arizona. And then at the end of that episode, we will pick the final cage match winner of whatever won the first episode, which I'll just say it, The Rock. Okay, The Rock won.
I'm sorry, I would have picked The Rock too.
I know, it's what everyone says. So we'll find out which is the ultimate cage movie of the 4 that we did this year. So
very cool.
Yeah. So it was a good time. We liked it.
It's a very good episode. I mean, every episode that you guys put out is great. I listen to them. Where can people find you?
They can find us. So we are at Quad Pro Quo Pod across Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can listen to us really wherever you podcast, or Spotify, Apple Music, everywhere. So yeah, we don't have any special theme planned for February. We're going to be recording this Saturday with my pick of Fresh, the 2022 movie with Sebastian Stan.
Very cool.
So we're going to be talking about that. So that'll be coming out in February. And Matt's pick of Lone Wolf and Cub, a Japanese.
Okay. Yeah, I was like, never heard of this one.
Yep.
Well, that's very exciting.
Sword of Vengeance. Yeah, something like
that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, yeah. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for
I really love this show.
Thank you for coming on such last minute. I swear, I literally messaged you like 3-4 hours ago because I had someone, they didn't feel good. I was like, well, I was actually planning on bringing you in next week because it was kind of like throwing you in there. So I just had to switch people. So you're here today, and you know, maybe you'll be back for another episode down the line.
I would love to. Love this show. I think it's great.
I'm glad people are loving the show. And it's great to see people, like I said before, it's great to see people who didn't get to experience the game, get to experience this amazing story, because it is amazing.
Yeah.
There was literally times where I was like, I really should just sit down and just play this game with my wife in the room just so she can experience this story. And they're like, we're making a show. And I was like, okay, I don't have to do that.
Yeah. Matt kind of said that. And like I said, as soon as they said the guys from Chernobyl, I was like, this is going to be great, because Chernobyl was just so good. And I was really excited for this. And Pedro Pascal is,
oh, he's so good.
He's
so good.
So good.
All right. Well, all of your links will be down in the description. All of our links are down in the description. You know where to find us because you're listening to us right now or watching us on YouTube. So you're already subbed, right? I'm looking at you, everybody. Make sure to leave us a comment on our YouTube channel or leave us a review and 5 stars on whatever podcast service you use. And we will be back next week for episode 3. And make sure to check our podcast episode on Friday, where we will be talking about a little movie from last year called Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yay!
Very excited and terrified on what people are going to think of that episode. But until next time, I am Brett Parker. That is Alli from the Quad Pro Quo Podcast. I can't say that fast. And this has been another episode of Slice of TV. We'll see y'all again next time. Bye.